I was in the middle of reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. The message was from my husband. Mountain cabin trip extended. Connection here is unbelievable. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds, not rereading it, just staring at that one word, connection. The word landed differently than he intended. My name is Avery Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and until that exact moment, I had been trying very hard not to admit something I'd been quietly suspecting for months. The office around me hummed with the usual background noise of keyboards and muted conversations. Fluorescent lights reflected off the polished surface of my desk. The numbers on the spreadsheet in front of me blurred for a second. Across the aisle, my coworker Axel Ramirez slowed as he passed my cubicle. "You good?" he asked. His eyebrows lifted. "You look like someone just told you your car engine exploded." I set my phone face down on the desk. "Something like that," I said. Axel leaned against the cubicle wall, arms folded. We'd worked together for 4 years, long enough to know each other's tells. "You've got that look," he said. "What look?" "The scary, calm one." I gave a small shrug. "I'm handling it." "Handling what?" "A situation that's about to resolve itself." Axel studied me for another second before pushing himself upright. "Well," he said, "that doesn't sound ominous at all." He walked away, but the truth was I had been watching the signs for months. Little things, the kind people ignore until it's too late. Daniel's phone suddenly had a passcode when it never had one before. Late-night messages that made him smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. New hiking boots by the front door. Craft beer appearing in the fridge. Camping gear. Mountain documentaries on the TV. None of those things were Daniel. Daniel used to hate bugs. The man once drove 20 minutes out of his way to avoid walking through a patch of tall grass. And then suddenly he was talking about mountain cabins, fresh air, weekend hiking trips, and how much he enjoyed discussing projects with a coworker named Olivia. Sorry, just a colleague. At least that's how he introduced her. A colleague who somehow needed his input at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. A colleague who shared all the same hobbies he had mysteriously developed over the last 6 months. Mountain hiking, craft beer, cabin renovations. Funny how neatly those things lined up. When Daniel mentioned the cabin trip 3 weeks ago, I didn't argue. I didn't question him. I didn't demand details. I just smiled and said, "Have fun." Because sometimes you have to give people enough rope. My phone buzzed again. I flipped it over. A new message from Daniel. "The fresh air up here is amazing. Thinking about staying through the weekend." It was Wednesday. I stared at the text for a moment, then leaned back in my chair. Not because I was shocked anymore, because something had finally clicked into place. Anger is loud, messy, hot. It makes people do stupid things. What I felt instead was colder than that. Cleaner. The kind of certainty that comes when you stop pretending not to see what's right in front of you. I picked up my phone and made a call. Not to Daniel. The receptionist answered after 2 rings. "Boone Legal Services. How can I help you?" "My name is Avery Bennett," I said. "I need to speak with Mr. Boone about initiating separation proceedings as soon as possible." Across the office, Axel appeared again, like he had radar for drama. His eyes widened when he saw my expression. I held up a finger, signaling for him to wait. The receptionist transferred the call. A moment later, a calm, professional voice came on the line. "Mr. Boone speaking. What's the situation?" "Straightforward," I said. "No children. House solely in my name. Marriage that appears to involve infidelity. I'd like to start the process immediately." There was a brief pause. Not shock, just evaluation. "I can see you this afternoon," he said. 3 o'clock. "Perfect." I ended the call. Axel was already standing beside my desk. "You just called a lawyer," he said slowly. "Yes." "Wow." He leaned against the cubicle again. "You're not messing around." "I'm not planning a vacation," I said. "I'm planning an exit." Axel whistled softly. "That's cold." "No," I said. "It's organized." My phone buzzed again. A photo this time. Daniel standing on a wooden deck overlooking a mountain valley. The sunset behind him painted the sky orange and purple. He looked relaxed, happy, like someone having the time of his life. I studied the picture for a moment, then forwarded it to my personal email. Documentation. After that, I opened my banking app. Our joint accounts appeared on the screen. Checking, savings, credit cards. Everything neatly shared. Everything legally accessible. For now. I made a mental note to deal with that after my meeting. At 2:45 p.m., I shut down my computer and grabbed my purse. My supervisor glanced up as I walked past his office but didn't ask where I was going. He probably saw my face and decided not to interfere. Smart man. Mr. Boone's office was downtown in an older brick building that smelled faintly of leather and old books. He greeted me at exactly 3 o'clock. Mid-50s. Gray at the temples. Firm handshake. I sat across from his desk and laid everything out. The timeline. The changes. The messages. The cabin trip. The coworker. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, this is refreshingly straightforward. Is that good? For you? Yes. He flipped through a property document I'd brought. The house is in your name only. That was Daniel's idea years ago, I said. Credit issues. Mr. Boone smiled faintly. Ironic. Very. He tapped his pen against the paper. I can have the paperwork prepared by tomorrow morning. And served? Tomorrow afternoon. I nodded. Good. He studied me for a moment. Does he know you're aware? Not yet. Another small smile. The clients who walk in this calm usually come out ahead. When I left his office, the sun was starting to dip toward the horizon. My phone buzzed again as I reached my car. Another message from Daniel. Missing you. Can't wait to tell you everything about this trip when I get back. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Instead, I started the engine and drove toward the county recorder's office. They closed at 5. I arrived with 20 minutes to spare. Inside, the clerk barely looked up as I filed a document confirming the house ownership. $30 filing fee. Worth every penny. By the time I got home that evening, the house felt different. Not emptier. Just clearer. I ordered takeout, sat on the couch, and opened the banking app again. With a few simple transfers, I moved my legal share of the joint funds into my personal account. Clean. Documented. Necessary. My phone buzzed one last time that night. Good night, sweet dreams. I turned the phone off, set it on the nightstand, and for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Because tomorrow was going to be very interesting. And Daniel had absolutely no idea. Thursday morning started quietly. For the first time in months, I woke up before my alarm and didn't feel that low, constant tension sitting behind my ribs. Once you finally admit the truth, the anxiety loses its grip. I walked into the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and opened the blinds. Morning light spilled across the hardwood floors of the house Daniel and I had shared for 7 years. 7 years. I stood there for a moment with my mug in my hand, looking around the room. Nothing looked different. But everything was. My phone lit up on the counter. A message from Daniel. Decided to stay one more day. Weather here is perfect. I stared at it for a second and took a sip of coffee. Still carefree in his world. Still unaware that the ground under his life had already started shifting. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my contacts and dialed the bank. Good morning, North Valley Financial, the receptionist said. My name is Avery Bennett. I need to schedule an appointment today to restructure some joint accounts. Of course. What time works best? Sooner the better. She placed me on hold briefly, then returned. We can fit you in at 12:30 p.m. with Ms. Bentley. That works. I ended the call and finished my coffee slowly. There's something oddly peaceful about executing a plan once you've made the decision. At work, Axel cornered me in the break room. You vanished yesterday, he said, pouring himself coffee. Lawyer meeting. He nearly dropped the mug. You were serious. I usually am. So what happens now, he asked. I leaned against the counter. Papers get drafted, assets get separated, logistics get handled. You say that like you're reorganizing a filing cabinet. In a way, I am. Axel shook his head slowly. You know, most people would be losing their minds right now. Most people wait until the damage is irreversible before acting. And you? I prefer timing. He studied my face again. You're scary calm. I've had months to think about this. My phone buzzed again. Another picture. This time, a small wooden cabin surrounded by pine trees. Daniel had added a caption. You'd love it here. Might bring you next time. I forwarded the image to my documentation folder, then locked my phone. Axel noticed. You're collecting evidence. I'm collecting clarity. At 12:30, I sat across from Ms. Bentley at the bank. She was a woman in her early 50s with sharp glasses and the efficient tone of someone who had seen every kind of financial dispute imaginable. How can I help you today, Ms. Bennett? I'd like to separate my personal share from the joint checking and savings accounts. She pulled up our profile. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Are both account holders aware of this request? They will be. She gave a small, understanding nod. Understood. The computer screen reflected in her glasses as she reviewed the balances. It will take about 45 minutes to process everything. That's fine. I signed the first set of documents while she prepared the transfer forms. While she worked, I checked my phone again. Still nothing from Daniel besides the morning message. He was somewhere in the mountains, enjoying fresh air and scenic views, while I was quietly restructuring the financial foundation of our entire life. By the time Ms. Bentley finished, the accounts had been divided cleanly. She slid the paperwork toward me. Your personal account now holds $17,000 transferred from the joint balances. Everything is fully documented. Perfect. She handed me a final sheet. The joint credit card will be frozen pending closure. I signed the last page. Thank you, I said. As I walked out of the bank, the afternoon sun felt warmer than usual. Not because the weather had changed, because my life had. At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. Mr. Boone. I answered immediately. It's done, he said. The process server confirmed delivery. My hand tightened slightly around the phone. Where? A cafe in the mountain town near the cabin. I imagined the moment. Daniel sitting at a small wooden table, maybe with a coffee in his hand, maybe even laughing, until someone walked up and said his name. You've been served, Mr. Boone continued. He attempted to refuse the papers at first, but the server explained the law. He eventually accepted them. Good. There was a brief pause. You should probably expect a reaction. I'm counting on it. I hung up and set the phone on the couch beside me. The house was still. For a moment, nothing happened. Then my phone exploded. Notifications flooded the screen. Calls. Texts. More calls. The phone actually lagged trying to keep up. Daniel, 8 missed calls. Daniel, 12 messages. The first text read, call me right now. Then another. What is this? Another. Divorce papers? Are you serious? Another. Avery, this isn't funny. Another. Pick up the phone. I set the phone on the coffee table and let it buzz. Let it ring. Let it panic. After a few minutes, I tapped the screen and blocked his number temporarily. Just long enough to have dinner in peace. At 6 o'clock, an unknown number called. I answered. The second I said hello, his voice exploded through the speaker. What the hell is wrong with you? Daniel sounded shaken, angry, confused. Divorce papers? He demanded. Are you out of your mind? I leaned back against the couch. I'm exactly in my mind. We need to talk. We are talking. This isn't how people handle things. It is when they're done pretending. You actually think I cheated on you? He snapped. I let the silence stretch. You think I don't know about Olivia? Another silence. Longer this time. You're being paranoid. Then come home and prove it. I'm coming home right now. Don't rush on my account. What? Enjoy the trip, I said calmly. Enjoy Olivia. The silence that followed was different. Not angry. Not defensive. Just stunned. You're serious, he finally said. I didn't answer. Instead, I ended the call. And blocked that number too. A moment later, my phone buzzed again. A message from Axel. Your husband's sister just called me asking for your number. I smiled slightly. Long story, I replied. Don't give it to her. A second later, Axel texted back. You good? I looked around the quiet house. Better than good. Better than I've been in months. But I knew something else was coming. Because people rarely accept consequences quietly. And Daniel's family had never been quiet about anything. At 8 o'clock, someone knocked on my door. Not a polite knock. 3 firm raps that echoed through the house like someone who believed they had every right to be there. I finished the last bite of pizza, wiped my hands on a napkin, and walked to the front door. Through the window beside it, I saw her, Mackenzie Carter, Daniel's younger sister. She stood on the porch with her arms crossed, shifting impatiently from one foot to the other. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. What's going on? She demanded immediately. No greeting, no small talk, just confrontation. What do you mean? I asked calmly. Daniel just called me from some mountain town completely losing his mind. I'm sure he is. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. You served him with legal papers? Yes. While he's on vacation, he extended the trip. That doesn't mean you nuke the relationship from orbit. I tilted my head slightly. Actually, that's exactly when you do it. Mackenzie ran a hand through her hair. You two have been together 7 years. Yes. And you're just throwing that away? No, I said. I'm ending it. Her jaw tightened. Daniel says you're accusing him of cheating. I'm not accusing him, I said. I'm responding to it. Her expression shifted slightly. Daniel would never... I raised an eyebrow. Would never what? Cheat, she said firmly. I held her gaze. Your brother extended a boys' trip by 3 days to enjoy an unbelievable connection in a mountain cabin. I folded my arms. That sound innocent to you? Mackenzie hesitated. Just a second. But that second told me everything. She didn't know what to believe. I think you're jumping to conclusions, she said finally. Maybe, but I doubt it. She exhaled sharply. Look, Avery, can we talk about this like normal people? We are. No, I mean inside. She glanced past me into the house. I didn't move. No. Her eyebrows shot up. You're not even going to let me in? This is my house. She blinked. What? The property is in my name. That doesn't mean... It means I don't have to invite anyone inside. Mackenzie stared at me. You're acting like this is some kind of business transaction. It is. She let out a short laugh. You're ending a 7-year marriage like you're closing a contract. Marriage is a contract, I said calmly. Daniel breached it. So you're dissolving it? Exactly. She shook her head slowly. You sound like a lawyer. I spoke to one yesterday. That finally silenced her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. Daniel is freaking out, she said quietly. He says you locked him out of the accounts. I separated them. He says you're kicking him out of the house. I already did. Her eyes widened. You can't just throw someone out. I didn't throw him out, I said. I removed his access to property he doesn't own. She stared at me again, this time like she was trying to see a different person. You've been planning this. For a while? And you didn't talk to him first? He had months to talk to me. Mackenzie opened her mouth to respond. And then another car pulled into the driveway. Headlights swept across the yard. Then another. And another. I sighed quietly. Of course. Daniel had always relied on one strategy when things got uncomfortable. Call the family. Within seconds, the quiet street filled with car doors slamming. Footsteps approached the porch. Daniel's parents. His cousin Nora. Another sister. The entire Carter family delegation. Mackenzie turned and looked at them arriving. Oh my God, she muttered. Her father, Wesley Carter, stepped forward first. Tall. Serious. The kind of man who believed his voice alone could settle any disagreement. Avery, he said firmly. We need to talk. About what? You served my son with divorce papers while he's on a trip. I served my husband with legal notice after he extended his mountain getaway. His face reddened. You can't destroy a marriage over a misunderstanding. That's the problem, I said calmly. There's no misunderstanding. Daniel's mother, Susan, stepped closer, her voice softer. Sweetheart, please, let's talk this through. We are. No, she said gently. Let's sit down and figure out what happened. Nothing happened, I said. They all stared. He cheated. Addison, Daniel's other sister, crossed her arms. That's insane. He would never. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the messages, then turned the screen toward them. Your son texted me yesterday, I said. Connection here is unbelievable. They looked at the message, then the photos, then the timeline. The mood on the porch shifted. Mackenzie bit her lip. Addison looked away. Susan frowned. Wesley's voice lost some of its certainty. This doesn't prove anything. It proves enough for me. Susan tried once more. You didn't even try counseling. Counseling for what? The part where he lies? The part where he deletes messages? The part where he hides his phone instead of talking to me? No one answered. Across the street, a neighbor briefly opened her curtains, then closed them again. Susan spoke again. Please talk to him when he gets back. I shook my head. I gave Daniel 7 years of chances. He used them all. Wesley's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made, I said quietly, was not doing this sooner. Silence fell over the porch. One by one, they turned and walked back toward their cars. Susan wiped her eyes. Mackenzie lingered a moment like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. The engine started. Headlights disappeared down the street, and the quiet returned. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned back against the wood for a moment. This was only the beginning. Daniel would come back. There would be arguments, attempts to fix something already broken. But the hardest step was already behind me. Because once you finally decide to walk away, you stop being afraid of what happens next.